Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to our chat with Levi from Talking Tremors. Yes, this has been a long time coming. Obviously, if you guys have been following us for a minute, early last year we did a Tremors 2 podcast, and that's kind of where, we got on Levi's radar here. And we got to talk with him. He kind of re-educated us on some of our facts in the comments there, which we deeply appreciated, because it's like, we're just getting our footing at that time. And, there's so much more to this franchise than we ever could have even imagined. And, we're both longtime fans. So, we've been in communication, you could say, and we're finally doing it. We're having them on. So Levi, how you doing, man? Welcome to the channel.
I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually kind of sick today, but I've drugged myself up as much as I need to. I've got the NyQuil in me, so hit me
Power
at it.
through. We appreciate you so much for doing that, man. Yeah. But yeah, go ahead and tell our fans a little bit about you. Kind of where'd your love of Tremors start, man? And then just kind of how did you get involved with Talking Tremors?
The first Tremors movie I ever watched was Tremors 2 Aftershocks. We were in a little gas station. Okay, so you remember how back in the Blockbuster day, you would go to a gas station and they would have movies you could rent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not dating myself too. I'm only 32, so I hope I'm not dating myself too much with that.
You're good.
And we went, and my mom and dad were there, and she was like, "Oh, there's this Tremors movie, and it's got Kevin Bacon in it." And so she was like, "Let's go home and watch it." But it was Tremors 2 Aftershocks. And we get home, and she's like, "Where's Kevin Bacon?" And she kind of locked out or whatever. And Dad was kind of in and out, but I absolutely fell in love. And I have a. Everybody always says Tremors 1 is the best one, but man, I will go to bat for Tremors 2 sometimes. Like it is in terms of a sequel, and having watched it first and then grown throughout the years, and I only saw Tremors 1 like 10 years later. Like I saw Tremors 2, and it was the only movie for the longest time. And really, goddamn, that I do like Earl Bassett's one of my favorite characters for the whole here's this guy that even in the setup of the sequel, he's like the Ellen Ripley, the Sigourney Weaver of just like, oh, we're going into this, I don't want to be here. And Fred Ward does an amazing job of acting terrified, but still trying to keep it calm. And he's like the ultimate hero to me in that. And to the point where me and my wife are always quoting is, "It's a whole new ball game. It's a whole new game." It's our one, whenever anytime something new comes up, that's always our one. And Tremors 2, fell in love with it. Ended up seeing Tremors 1 years later. Tremors 3, I was so excited when I saw it in a trailer. And honestly, as I've done this podcast more and more and more, I've come to realize that all of the movies that I want or I love all go back to Tremors. Like there's that feeling of it's horror, but it's got to be funny, and it's got to love itself a little bit and play with the tropes and do that sort of thing. And I'm always looking for more Tremors, like something in the Tremors vein, more Tremorsy movies. Can never really find them. Like it's such a rare. There are Deep Rising. I always go to that one, or The Mummy is another one where they have that feel to them or whatever. And how I got here is about 5 years ago. I was the first person online. If you look it up online, I'm the first one to point out the beginning of Tremors is the end of Tremors, where the sleeping bag that Earl comes out of looks exactly like Stumpy the Graboid. And and I'm always so proud of it, in terms of the first person
Yeah.
point that out and shit. And so I started there, and then let's say it would be 2015. Jesus Christ, I said 5 years ago. Now all time and stuff happens. Tremors 5 came out, but then Tremors 6 came out. And I remember watching it, and there's some weird, what the fuck is this happening in here? There's one point where Val's daughter is literally explaining to Bert what graboids are, and it's like, you called him. Why are you telling him what he already knows? Or these just terrible exposition. And I ended up uploading videos of it. It was my first uploading videos to the internet of just this is really bad. Why is this happening right now? So then that happened, and then slowly, if you've watched Tremor 7, have you watched Tremor 7? Do you know of Tremor 7? Well,
I have. Luke
No.
has only seen up to 3.
it's okay. There's a thing that happens at the end of Tremor 7 that when you watch it, you're just like, the fuck is this? This is
Wait,
this.
Tremor 7 is the one correct?
Is the what?
Is the latest one that's the newest one, isn't it? 7?
Tremor 7 Shrieker
Then
Island.
okay, nope, I've seen 7.
Okay,
because
yeah,
of
he watched that one. Yeah,
because of that thing.
yeah.
And we'll not spoil it because there might be people watching it or whatever. And I watched this, and I was just like, "This is the dumbest fucking thing ever." Like, I've been in love with Tremors forever. I watched Tremors the series when it came out on Sci-Fi,
Oh wow.
week after week. Like, I happened to be like, I got to watch it in its completely shitty, fucked up order, but I got to watch it week after week, and it just was like, "This is so dumb." And he ended up, there was this Reddit thread where someone was talking about, oh, let's take the other footage of Bohemian Rhapsody and make a better movie out of it. And I just went on this tear of just like, let's re-edit the end of Tremor 7 because this is a bunch of bullshit. And I ended up getting like 5,000 upvotes on it, and everybody was like, is this the new copy pasta? Like, what's going on? I was like, okay, so people give a shit about Tremors. And then I started digging, and I started finding out this stuff, like found out about what happened to Stampede, found out what was really happening with Michael. And I was just like, okay, so if I'm going to like plant a flag in the hill and die on it, it's going to be just right fucking here, man. Like, Tremors needs somebody to give a shit. And I did. And I just went, for me, it was like I was all over Reddit. Like, every time there was a Reddit post about Tremors, I'd be making them, or if somebody else made them, all over it, just talking about Stampede. And that was where I made the video, because people were like, you need to like package this better for us. You're just telling it to us in comments. I was like, okay, fucking video of it. There you go. And yeah, just fucking snowballed and spiraled. And eventually that's where I think my biggest thing, I think people saw what I was doing on Reddit, and that's what inspired the Tremor Saga account. Because then like a year later, it was like, hey, like, we seen you doing this. Do you want to like come do a podcast? It was like, I mean, if you really think so, I like, fuck yeah, okay, awesome. Like, let's get in there and do this. And that was, yeah, it's been a year of the podcast, so that's where I'm at today.
Hell yeah, man. No, that's great. Yeah, and for a little history from us, like, so I have seen all of the movies, including the Universal ones, all the way up to 7. I have a much stronger, memory and conception wise of just like the first 2, because those 2 are my all-time favorites. And it was kind of funny and fortuitous almost that this happened, because I loved Tremors 2 growing up. Like, it was one of those things where like I got the Attack Pack on DVD when that came out, and yep, right there. So that's the exact one. I remember we got that. Like, there was a grocery chain up here in Ohio called Giant Eagle, and they had, like, for one summer, they had all these movies that were just like every week they'd have like a sale on them, and that one was just one that was like $5. My parents loved the first film, and they were like, "You got to see Tremors." So I got that, fell in love. But Tremors 2 was one of those ones where I was just like, man, this movie's great. And I would watch that on repeat, playing with toys in my basement as a little kid. And then, we restart this. Like, we're doing our podcast. We're doing this last year. And Luke had mentioned this to me before, and I'd always gotten excited. But then he was finally just like, hey, my next pick, Tremors 2. And so that's when kind of everything kind of reshaped for us, and we got to go down this path. But Luke, again, I know we talked about it on the podcast, but your infatuation with Tremors, where to start for you?
Man, I am absolutely right there with Levi, because like Tremors 2 was my introduction to the Tremors franchise. It was always on USA Network, so it was like just playing, like, how they would play it and then a few days later play it again. So I was, when it comes to Tremors, Shriekers always come to my head. That's the first thing before Graboids, because it was like, as a kid, it's already playing. It's like, a half hour in, and we're already at the Shriekers. We've forgotten about the Graboids at that point. So it's like always, that was my go-to. So like Earl, I love Val, I do, but like Earl, absolutely my guy, because it's just like there's just something about him where it's like, especially seeing Tremors 2, they kind of intertwine some of the like Val's kind of comedy relief from the first one into the Earl character a little bit. But so it's like, just going into that is like Tremors 2 really snowballed. Like this is where it was. And I didn't see the original Tremors until I rented it on VHS probably like 5 years later. And then I was like, oh, okay, so Kevin Bacon's in this and this, but it's like always been, Earl doing the fire extinguisher, Bert showing up with the MREs, all that stuff. Like Tremors 2 was my start into this whole Tremor saga. So it's just like I'm right there with you where it's like that is, I love Tremors, but Tremors 2, that's my all-time favorite. And it's like that's where me and Dylan do the podcast, and I'm always picking sequels, and Tremors 2 greatly has an effect on me where it's like it's such a great sequel where it's like I'm always like Psycho 2 or stuff like that where it's like I'm always looking for that really good sequel because of Tremors 2.
Definitely. Yeah, no. And it's one of those ones where me, like, it always stands out. And it's something that as far as sequels go, like, I'm a big defender of Jaws 2. I bring it up on the channel all the time. I absolutely love that movie. And I feel like I'm on an island all by myself until I indoctrinated Luke into the cult of Jaws 2 a few years back. So it's one of those things where it's like, one day that's going to get its due. But, when we posted Tremors 2 and saw the response on our channel just from it, where like, I think for the time that was our most viewed podcast.
Yeah, it was.
So it was just something where it's like, holy crap, like the Tremors like fandom is huge. And so it's like, yeah, that's again where we got interlaced with you and where everything kind of started to kick off here. And so I got to ask, like, being kind of on the forefront of like leading the charge with the Tremors fandom online and everything, because honestly, it's like you might take that as a huge compliment, but it's like it is true. I don't see anybody talking as much about Tremors as you. So it's one of those things where it's like, where would you personally like to see this franchise go, knowing all the history, knowing what we know about, where the rights are and everything? Like, in your perfect world, where does this franchise go from here? Because like I know that Universal is talking about rebooting. I mean, we had some news a few weeks ago, which we're going to touch on with you here shortly. But I just want to know where you think the best stepping off point is going to be for this franchise.
Fans. I know that's so stupid or nerdy to say, but having learned what I've learned about Stampede Entertainment, every time they made a new Tremors movie, they would watch all of the Tremors movies beforehand, a bunch, over and over and over again, to figure out how to one-up themselves and make something better. And as I've gone through and waded through all this muck and stuff, and honestly, I don't interact much on Twitter, but I watch the Tremors Saga's Twitter feed in general. And I gotta say, there's so many good ideas that come from fans, just like weird, wacky, out there stuff. And if you put me in charge and I was the showrunner, it's a TV show, because you can't. There are so many great ideas, and someone's like, I want my Tremors 8 or I want my Tremors 9. And I'm like, how about we put all of these ideas into a TV show, and they're all separate episodes? That's a great idea, because you can really work on an idea in a 45-minute. You know what? Do that like Marvel Star Wars thing where it's like, let's call it 45 minutes, 60 minutes, and really hammer home on an idea for one episode. And I do. That's where, like, because you could Tremors 4 and Tremors 5 in my mind kind of showed the framework. Okay, we can go in the past, or we can go all the way over here to another country, or we can also stay here in America in a regular place, but we can go anywhere. These things have existed for a long ass time all across the world. Let's Graboids in Egypt, Shriekers in Japan. Actually, that's always I want Japanese Tremors. That would just be really cool.
That would be badass.
Actually looking at what Prey just did, which I always like, because it's like Tremors 4 just did that 20 years before you guys did, and it's just like we can go anywhere with this. And I think to be like, this has to be a movie really boxes it in, because there's an expectation of just like, oh, it has to be a big idea to be on the big screen and throw all the money at it. It's like, I don't know. There's it because the TV show shows that some of the best thing that Tremors does, and this is true of what I think is the best ones, 1, 2, and 4, is character work. Because what everybody always writes home about Tremors 1 is Val and Earl's chemistry, is their buddy cop chemistry, where it's so hard to replicate that. And then what I just said about Tremors 2, watching Earl be absolutely scared, but still trying to be a hero at the same time. My favorite thing about Tremors 4 is Hiram being a dandy man that doesn't want anything to do with it, learning to the town means something to him. And that's where the Tremors, the series, there's so many good episodes. Actually, my favorite one is with Bert, where he has to go up against a group of people that are crazier than he is, who think that the Graboids are aliens and that they're stealing like his people, and they call him a government agent, and it's this whole beautiful, like, I imagine they didn't spend much money on the episode, but it ends up being a bigger concept watching your characters do stuff inside of that. And I think that's either you have a crazy wild concept like Shriekers in Japan, or you do a character episode. And that's what a TV show, that's, like I said, that's the TV show. You can go anywhere you want every single week. And that's my pitch. That if I that's my elevator pitch for that. So, and use ideas. That's my biggest thing. Is there's so many good ideas. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. Like, I don't need to trash any of them.
I think that Luke and I would probably agree with you. I mean, I'll give Luke a chance to say his theories or what he would like to see with it, where it would go. But like, I think that him and I are both proponents of like television, especially like where it's gone within like the last decade, of just like opening things up and letting people tell broader stories, giving TV shows a little bit more money to actually tell those stories to the best of their abilities. And like, you know, it's still not reaching for most shows unless you're Game of Thrones or Mandalorian. You know, like you still, you know, you don't have the world's biggest budget. But I feel like, you know, when you look back at some of these movies from like, you know, especially the 80s and the early 90s, you know, we're talking about this time, you know, a limited budget really breeds creativity.
Yeah.
And I think if there's anything we've learned from certain sequels we've covered and other movies, it's like having a smaller budget will just push you to think of more creative ideas. It's like, it's kind of the Jaws effect. I mean, like, where it's like the shark wasn't working, so they had to not show the shark as much. And, you know, I feel like that's some of the best parts of the first Tremors, is that, you know, when I watched that as a kid for the first time, like kind of trying to think back to it, or even when I revisited it again, it's just like that build up and that slow build up over time of just first seeing the dirt move, first seeing little tongue come out that you don't even know is tongue. And then the slow reveal is just like some of my favorite stuff. And it's just like, I think that, you know, going into a TV show format, like I would really love to see that week to week, or even if they just did the Netflix thing and dropped a season every 2 years. It's like, I would love that. I think that would be great. And Luke, why don't you go ahead and hit us with your best pitch there for a TV, where you want to see the series go?
But I mean, like, you know, I'm with the TV show aspect here, because, like, you know, as Levi's talking about it, and you think about it, I mean, we've covered on our shows here, like, you know, the announcement of the Friday 13th TV show coming out, and you know, where that's going to be going. But like, you know, and for that, you know, that's great. But, you know, I think a lot of fans are going to want this kind of connective tissue of, you know, Mrs. Voorhees and all this other stuff of, oh, we got to have this, we got to have that. Where I think for me, the beauty of the Tremors lore is that it really does lend itself to almost be an adventure of the week if we wanted to go that where, because it's so versatile, where it's like, I mean, I would love to have, you know, Bert show up every so often, but you don't necessarily need that. You can have every episode have its different feel. You can go to Japan, you can go to Mexico, you know, you can stay in the United States, and you can do a bunch of different things just with the Tremors themselves. And like how Dylan was talking about how limited budgets breed creativity. It's like, you know, looking at like, you know, Tremors 2, where they had a handful of practical shriek, and they had to be very limited as to what they could shoot and what they could use. It's like, you know, there are so many fans out there that it's like, hey, I have this great idea, and hey, you give me 3 practical shriekers or 1 graboid, and hey, I'll go make you a 60-minute thing, because it's like, where we talk about, I'm sure we'll talk about it, your 60-minute video where it's like, and you kind of establish, how much money the franchise has made, and it's just like you realize that the Tremors fan base is such an underrated fan base, where it's like there are so many people out there, but it's not talked about that much. And it's just like, there's so much fan scripts and everything like that. And it's like I just started diving a little bit into it after listening to your video where you recommended so many different things. And it's just like there is so much out there that
Oh
you
my,
can really elaborate on. And it's like, in sometimes with Tremors, less is more, where it is that aspect of you just need, the graboid popping up real quick for a quick jump scare, and then you work on the characters like you were talking about, where, I've only seen 1 through 3, and I'm sitting there watching it, and I always wonder why I accept someone like Grady or someone like Desert Jack, just like straight out of the gate, without, where it's like sometimes you see these characters and you're like, well, they're thrown in just because it's a sequel and we couldn't get any of the originals back. But it's like, that core from the original Tremors is so strong with like, I look at it and I'm like, Earl says Grady's cool. So, hey, Grady's cool by me. And it's like, hey, Bert says Desert Jack is cool. So, you know what? I'm on board with this, So it's like, you just need some of those strong characters like that to really, kind of almost like a relay race to kind of carry that. So it's like, if you just put a little bit of that into a TV show, hey, I'm there every week.
oh yeah. And actually, what you guys kept saying about the limited budget, one thing I love pointing out is that Tremors 1, 2, 3, 4, and the TV show, all of that was made for under $30 million.
It's great. Like, I mean, that's insane.
All of those things together, not like one movie, all of those under $30 million. Like, that is, and what you were even saying, Dylan, where that first movie does so much in the slow buildup, that was exactly why they did it. They knew we don't have the money to do this. Let's make a creature you can't see. And then we do all of these because they came from a background of effects work. And like, that's where the Short Circuit movie was even an idea that they'd started with their library movies. And just like, hey, we know we can cheat, the camera like this. Let's do these little tiny things. I always laugh because you have 2 of the biggest effects artists in the world, Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Gillis, who like absolutely massive now. And when they first started with Tremors, Steve was like, "We need a hand puppet. And they were like, "We don't do hand puppets. That's like." And then Alec Gillis is always like, "Yeah," and we ended up using that fucking hand puppet more than anything.
That's great.
And you see that thing all throughout the movie, just that little fucking hand puppet, but it went a long way, man. Like, that's small budgets. That's where it's at.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that I can say about Tremors, that I think why it has this lasting kind of appeal and why it has been able to stick, even with the direct-to-video market kind of being its home for at least for now, and why, even though like diehard fans may not love the Universal sequels, and I mean, now that we have a better insight thanks to your video of just like what is going on, and it's kind of like, not to bash filmmakers or anything, but it's like there is a little bit of disdain for Universal for how they've handled it and how they've kind of gone forward. And of course, my number one thing with it is like they went really hard into the CG and really changed the way the Tremors look, which again, I'm fine with them changing the look, because especially like you said, they do go to different places, and they talk about like Tremors in Africa and everything, and just how that's going on. It's just like it works, like the concept works, but I just think the execution was poor.
Yeah.
And I just think that like overall, Tremors to me, it does work better as just being more of a character piece, and like why I think it connects with people and why I think that so many people keep going back to it is due to its characters. Because even I'll say it, like I really enjoy Jamie Kennedy in the first, like I think Tremors 5. I love him in Scream. I like a lot of his work. I think he's a funny guy. I like his YouTube channel, but it's one of those things where it's like I think he really worked with Michael Gross. And, that comes to that, just again, where we talk about characters like Grady and other characters that get introduced here, where it's like they all they just work because they just feel like real people. And I think that's why older generations like my parents and, our parents in general, between the three of us, kind of connected with these movies because it's just like they are simple concept. They're simple people dealing with an astronomical presence of just what the fuck is this? And it's like I think that's why it connects with so many people and why it will continue to connect. And that's why ultimately I am just so saddened that it seems like it's just kind of caught in this limbo because of how Universal is treating the franchise right now, that we're not exposing a whole new generation of kids that, let's be honest, their parents may not be the biggest horror fans or creature feature fans, so they might not see Tremors until way later in their lives. But if a new Tremors movie was coming out in theaters and you had, advertising everywhere or a new Tremors show, they'd probably see that and be like, well, what is that all about? I want to check that out, So it's like, I want more of that. And I guess that's just in my mind why I think it connects with people and has stayed such a relevant franchise and why the fan base is so rabid,
I'd agree.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's legit. It's the character work. Like I cannot add anything to that. Even actually, just that Jamie Kennedy and Michael Gross, it doesn't seem like it works, but then they managed to mesh really well together. To the like, I know other people don't like Jamie, but when he's in a Tremors movie, I'm kind of like, okay, I'll deal with this. This is fine for now.
Mm-hmm. And Luke, you got something?
Yeah. Just like, just talking about the character work, because I always talk about for a sequel, there has to be a reason for it. And it's like Tremors establishes, I think a perfect chemistry, perfect setup. And then when you move into the sequel, it's like, Earl, again, we give him something different where, Val went off, found his wife, is doing his own thing. Earl's still left behind, and it's like, they tried to do the ostrich farming, didn't really work out for him. He doesn't have any money from, all the Nike sales and all that stuff, so we're kind of giving him, the teeth of what is motivation, kind of go out and hunt these Tremors down. And then even going into 3, where it's like, Bird is back in perfection. And I love the idea that, we see a little bit of it in the original Tremors as soon as they figure out what the Graboids are. And then it's like, now it's like full blown of perfection is Graboid City, and we're trying to, market everything. And Bird is the only one taking anything seriously. Where he's asking if everyone's kind of been paying attention to the seismic, waves of everything, and if the Graboids are out there. And it's like no one cares anymore. And then it's like just the evolution of in 2, they make it so perfect where Earl and Grady are just out there, blowing everyone up. It's fish in a barrel. They figured it out. And then it's like, and then they flip that switch, and it's like, wait, now it's Shriekers. And it's like, well, how do we deal with this? And then 3, I have my own little issue with the choice of the name with the ass blasters. But again, it's where they evolution, that evolutionary perspective where it's like, okay, now it's a new threat. And it's like, I love that they kind of add that and they switch it up, because it's like when you look at sequels where it's like, Friday 13th, Halloween, things like that, where they kind of struggle to put in new teeth to the story, where it's like, okay, yeah, we're slapping 4 or 5 onto this, but it's really the same story over. And you can really kind of draw that A, B to C, where it's like Tremors really does, give that different aspect where it's like you're viewing something that seems familiar to you, but it's something that is also new. And it's like, again, I can't really comment too much on the Universal stuff after Stampede left, because I didn't really have an interest in watching it. But from what I did see with like Shrieker Island and things, it seems like a lovely relationship, at least to me, where it's like, you look at that first stuff and it's like there's a lot of love in those scripts, and there's reasons why they want to do things with the characters that they did. Whereas the rest of it just seems like, oh, we're just getting by. At least, that's how I feel.
It's the in space concept where what you're talking about with the other horror franchises is this like, okay, we're just going to keep going up and up and up and up. Whereas with Tremors, it's like, okay, we're going to go up and then we go down and then we went to the side and now there's a corkscrew and then it's like, because you got to flip it. That's where I always point out to people that Tremors 1 is an homage. It's actually a parody. Actually, it's best described as a parody movie. It's a parody movie taken 100% seriously, because that's what Steve Wilson grew up with. Like that was his, like those 50s, 60s era like monster movies like them. That's always the go-to standard of just like, and just like, okay, let's take that, and what if we like flip the script and like tried to make these people a little bit more real, a little bit more human, and know the tropes and play into them, but then also flip them at the same time. And it's like that's what sets Tremors apart, is knowing what came before and doing something different. And it's where I actually I did a whole podcast where I tried to find all of the good things in 5, 6, and 7, and I did a good 2 hours of just like, here's what I like about those movies, and there are some good things. There's no heart. There's no other love. There's no like, hey, we're trying to make something new. It's just, oh, everybody likes Tremors, right? Well, let's just like make some more of those Tremors movies again. It's like, okay, we do, but we're coming to this for something else. Like it's not just the pretty graboids on the box. We're coming to it for the character work. It's smart. That's I don't mean to be like, it's just a smarter horror or a smarter monster movie than what you're used to. And that's, when it's loveless, it feels like it's condescending to you. That's always my problem with them.
Yeah.
Just looking down.
No, I definitely agree with that. Like, that's a very good way of putting it, because it is just one of those things where it's like the love isn't there. Like, and it is one of those things where it just seems very much like they're just cashing in on the title. And I think one of the key points that I took away from your video is just how, this team would come in and they'd, put all this work into it. You're talking about how they're watching all the Tremors movies up to that point, getting their continuity in order, just trying to figure out how do we make this work and please the fans and work with our universe. And it's just like with Universal, they're just kind of like, all right, well, we're gonna move this to another place, or we're gonna throw this in. And
Graboids on an island, like that's like,
yeah, it's like, and even with Graboids in the snow, it's like from what I recall, that's like, wasn't that shot in like somewhere else, like not even a cold environment or anything, and they just tried to make it look cold. That one I have the least memory about. I watched that years ago and never wanted to go back to it. So yeah, it's just like, how do you like go from these people who are not only making these movies for a reasonable budget, that's you yourself as a studio are admitting are making astronomical amounts of money, whether it's at the home box office or whether it's re-releases in theaters, like people are showing up for these, and then you're just going to say, well, no, we're just going to toss you guys out with the bathwater and we're going to do our own thing. And it's like, I'm sure by this point they've had to have seen diminishing returns, because I mean, obviously, from what we know, a few weeks ago, there was the announcement of the Bill Watterson film that was canceled. And it's just kind of like, so even Universal has probably sat there and said, well, we got to try to do something different, because like this clearly isn't working anymore. And I just wonder, who at Universal do we have to really like, pull the wool like out from over their eyes and just say like, hey, look at what people actually love. Look at the fandom. Look at what's going on online, and look about how people talk about something like Tremors or Tremors 2. And, that's what works. Like, that's what people want. They want that magic that you spoke about, where it's like, it gives you that feeling again of just like, this feels like, because to me, and I've been saying this a lot lately, because we just talked about Psycho 2, and it gave me this kind of same feeling of just like, there is a time in my life where I just remember it's the summer. It's like maybe 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm outside playing a bunch. I'm coming in after dinner and I'm just seeing what's on AMC. I'm seeing what's on sci-fi. And a movie like Tremors or Tremors 2 coming on with like the sunset going down, like I will always have those feelings grained into my brain forever. And like, I just feel like with certain movies these days, like every once in a while, there's a movie I feel like we'll hit that. Like, I think Top Gun 2 is one of those movies. But like, for me, it's one of those things where it's like, you don't get that anymore. And it's so simple to execute. Again, it comes down to characters. It comes down to not treating your audience like idiots who just want to see CGI graboids. It's like, Do we say that? Yeah, I'm ready to see some graboids eat some people, of course. But at the end of the day, I want that magic back. And so I guess like I don't really have a question on that, but that's just kind of my statement there, where I'm just kind of like, you know, I don't know what it's going to take for them to see the magic that we need to get back. But yeah, I'm just going to end my little rant there and let you take it off, Levi.
You said the wool off the who do you have to take the wool off the eyes? And I've learned this. I please forgive me. I'm always going to quote Steve because he does so many interviews and I've listened to him so much. Marketing departments. The whole reason, and you can blame this not just for Tremors, but if you have a problem with anything, entertainment wise, it'll always come back to the marketing departments. Because Steve tells this story where him and Brent were given a pitch meeting for Disney for another script about 20 years ago, and they were in the meeting, and it was a guy that they'd actually done a bunch of other movies for, and just talking to him. Actually, they hadn't gone to the meeting yet; they were just waiting, and they came, and somebody came in and was like, "Oh, so and so is fired, and they've been replaced by the head of marketing." And ever since then, Steve will tell it where it's like, yeah, like he even is specific where it's like, unless it's something based on a book, based on a comic, based on something that's already been created before, they don't want anything to do with it. Like it's all these marketing departments have taken over the creative aspect of it, and unless you fit into the survey study, it's out. Like, and that's the only reason that we get more Tremors is that thing I always say, Universal brags, we can sell an empty box named Tremors. So they don't care. They can just, all right, that's a good, Graboids in the snow, Graboids on an island, Graboids in the air, and just stuff it in the box, send it out. And their marketing department goes, okay, good, that's good. It gets us back our return on our numbers and stuff. So that's where, like, I'm always appreciative of the Tremor saga doing what they do in terms of consolidating the information and consolidating fans, because it's like it's a great, hey, that look at that, like look at that over there. They all want that. They don't want you to remake it. They don't want you to reboot it. They just want original Tremors with the original people again. Could you listen? I'm like, that's over there, and it's what I try to do with my podcast, where I'm always like, yeah, 5, 6, and 7 have something. I don't want to shit on any filmmaker because it takes a lot to make a movie. Like it's not an easy process. It's more just like, yeah, they're good, but these over here, these are just head and shoulders above it. So if you really want, like, this is the thing that you want, people, like, go for this. Like, I'll never tell anyone not to, actually, I might say, like, if you're a really huge fan, don't watch 7, because there's a lot of people that watch it and they have a very like, oh my God, like this I can't say it. This thing happened that made me like cry, and it's like they're just playing you to get the money out of you, and I hate that so much. But still, watch it if you want to. You're a free person. Go out there and do it. But please go buy the Attack Pack. That's the real one. I found out this is on Blu-ray too, even. So go buy the Attack Pack. Go buy Tremors the series. Actually, that's always the one I love to point out to people because they don't even know it exists. So it's just like, yeah, no. Go, this is, if you want more of this, go get this one. Like this, like, so that's my if you're gonna pull the wool off someone's eyes and try to teach the Hollywood machine, it's the marketing departments, and that's an impossible thing to fight in the first place. So
because they really get it out there and they make all the money. I get it. Luke, do you have anything to add to all this?
You know, it's like looking at it, you know, it just kind of emphasizes the idea that, you know, maybe a TV show in that long form storytelling could be an interesting way to go, where it's like it seems like they Universal understands that, you know, it's treated more like a cash grab. It's like, yes, there's an audience here. So let's put something out here. We know that the hardcore fan base is gonna, you know, come out for it no matter the quality because they want to see Tremors, and then we'll get our return. And then, hey, you know, back to the dark depths with Tremors until we need another quick buck. And they never want to fully invest, obviously, as we saw with, you know, the Bill Watterson stuff, where it's like, we're gonna have a reboot, we're not gonna have a reboot, whatever. But it's like you look at something like what we cover on the channel. We've covered the Chucky TV show for the past, and it's like looking at that, where I think that TV show has really got that franchise back on track, where it's like Yeah, it's brought some of the main characters back from the TV shows and really got that storytelling going and back into that original form. And it's like something like Tremors, if you don't want to take that chance to put that quality back in the theater, put that quality back on our TV. And we can show that, yes, the audience is going to show up for it. We can get it back on track. And then maybe we can get it in the theater at some point, for like those bigger budgeted things. Because it's like maybe in this today, it's like as we saw, slashers are a bigger deal now than they were probably 10 years ago, where it was like, I don't know if there's really anything left in the tank. And then, we find the footing and we see Halloween back in theaters, we're seeing Scream back in theaters, where it's like Tremors is, a monster movie where it's like maybe they don't understand that, there is a market out there for the monster movies. But it's for me, I feel like Tremors is that Halloween 2018, is that new Scream. It's like you put that in the theater, people are going to show up for it. And I think that can get the ball rolling for, hey, maybe we get another Blob movie. I don't know. But, it's like I think that we could really start getting a lot of different things going and I think Tremors is that kind of franchise with the marketability to be like, I think that can resonate with a general audience, even with people who aren't necessarily aware of a lot of the Tremor stuff. But I think, it's fun enough and you can sit there and it's digestible enough that I think you can get a lot of new fans that don't even are aware of the Tremors franchise currently.
No, I like that. I definitely agree.
I'm
Go ahead.
No, I'm
Oh,
in.
no, you second. Okay, gotcha. So to kind of bring us towards the end of our conversation here, I do want to ask, we've been dancing around it a little bit. The Bill Watterson stuff did, come out a couple weeks ago. That was kind of a big moment, I would say, for Tremors fans at that time, because it's like, okay, there was something here to actually try to get this back. They said, his intent was to bring back the, practical effects. It almost seemed like Universal was finally going to take a step in the right direction here, even if they weren't going to, involve Stampede or give it back. They were at least having somebody who, looking at their previous work, they do work with a lot of practical stuff, and they seem like they had a lot of good ideas from the limited information we got. Levi, how do you feel about all that? What were your thoughts when you found out about it? Is this something you kind of knew about before everybody else, or was this something that kind of caught you off guard when it was announced?
Didn't catch me off guard at all. I said it in that 60-minute episode. Ron Underwood has been talking about the Tremors 8 that was being written, and that was actually, like I said, my timeline, because I listen to so many podcasts, that might be 2 years now. Actually, he said that they were writing it ever since Shrieker Island ended. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, and I did, and it was one of those where it's like, I didn't want to tell anybody, because it goes back to that marketing department where it's like, I don't want that news to go viral in any kind of way, of just like, no, that we'll just keep that to myself. I know I heard Ron say that, and Ron's actually still out there. He just went. Actually, Steve was telling me he's just going to Australia right now, and he's filming 3 episodes of La Brea. So Ron's still in the business and knows things, and it wasn't surprised. And I've always been against what Kevin Bacon kind of tried to do, where it's the full, we're gonna ignore all of the sequels and make a whole new. Or you're just like, but like, you have 30 years of, even the Universal sequels didn't really like erase the other ones.
Yeah.
They kind of left it intact. They may not have mentioned it, but they left it intact. And I probably would have been the biggest, like, no, don't reboot it. But seeing Bill Watterson, and I love Dave Made a Maze. Like, I don't know if you've seen, but that is an absolutely phenomenal movie, and wouldn't have been who I picked to like do another Tremors movie. But as soon as I heard it, it was like, oh, what did we just lose out on? That was like that's the thing I've been hearing about, and like, oh, that sucks a lot. Like, that's really, really shitty. My biggest thing that I go back to about it, where I always feel bad that Michael got written out too. So if there's a way to bring him back, then I'm in the end happy. And I don't mean like Bert. I mean like bring Michael Gross as an actor himself. Allow him. That's where I love Tremors 4. Letting him act and be somebody else that's not Bert Gummer is a really great, like, I bet that felt good. And to see him, because people ask him all the time, and he'd say on Facebook, "Yeah, I don't know, nobody's telling me anything," but then I would know it's like, well, nobody's telling you anything, but then why is Ron over here talking about the other Tremors? They're gonna do it without you. Oh my God, no, 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 no. That's so like I said, it wasn't a surprise. It was the writing on the wall, but to see Bill Watterson doing it was a real like, oh, that's okay. That could have been something. That could have really been like, oh, I'm kind of sad, and I really don't think that he would have done the erase thing, because that was part of what we were reading with the Daily Dead. And actually, Tremor Saga told me actually Bill Watterson reached out to them. Like Bill, like he was emailing the Tremor Saga, and they were like sending me some screenshots of it. But, no, I'm not gonna. I didn't plan on like getting rid of it. It was just, how do you make that fresh again? And there was some, as they said, there was some references to Earl. So I'm like, okay, if you had Earl in there, I can't believe that you would have gotten rid of Bert and Michael Gross. I feel like it's not really possible. You have to reference that in some way, so then you're not getting rid of the continuity. And I would love to get my hands on that script. It's a full script, and it's just like, I'm actually the reason that the other scripts are out there. So it's like, if I could get that last one, that would be really great.
I love that. Yeah, no, I've definitely, one of the things that I remember when you first commented, or at least the channel first commented on our video, we went back, I listened while I was at work, your reading of the original Tremors 2 script. And this was like, I was so into that. Like, I loved having Val and stuff back in it. And I was just like, man, I love Tremors too. Like, don't get me wrong, I do. But I was just like, man, this would have been interesting to see. Like get everybody back. And
it's my favorite. But to hear that script is like, that could have been so good. Oh, damn it, man. It's still a great movie, but the could have been is like, oh, it hurts. It hurts a lot.
And Luke, you had actually, when in preparation for Tremors 2, you came across that video before we even recorded, because I remember you mentioning that there was a guy out there who had read through the whole thing.
Yeah. Diving down that that rabbit hole. You stumble upon a lot of different things. Yeah, so that was one thing that I started listening to, because the script is out there, obviously. So I started reading the script, and I stumbled upon you reading it, and I was like, well, this is way easier. So it's like, and it's like, listen,
forgive me.
And it was a joy to listen to, and it's just like, I love Tremors 2 as well. But like to think we could have gotten Val and Earl back together again. It's like, you love those moments of like just seeing it and like living those images in your head and realizing, oh man, this would have been great to get. But I still have a love for Tremors 2, but it's like, it pains me to know that we'll never get that reunion on screen anymore. Especially so many opportunities for so many years before the unfortunate passing of Fred Ward, but it never really came to be. But it's like, one of my biggest things is, I would have loved to have seen Earl as an amusement park owner of Graboids, but we never got it.
We got that. I've learned this more and more, because everybody likes to shit on Kevin Bacon for, well, why weren't you in the movies? And I've come to realize that not being in 2 is probably one of his biggest life regrets. Like I've seen it more and more ever since Fred Ward died, because he's like, well, I won't be able to do that again. And I always wanted to get back in the saddle with Fred, because he speaks so highly of him that it's just like, I feel really bad for him that never really happened and never will. And I didn't mean to make it a downer there, but it's just, that's where it's like, let's be nicer to Kevin. It's totally understandable when you're in the 90s and you have a mental breakdown because you're having your first kid, and I'm making a movie about goddamn underground worms. Like, it wasn't a thing back then. Like, give the guy a fucking break. Like, it's totally fair. He did Apollo 13 instead. Like, if you weigh Tremors 2, Apollo 13, like, do you blame him? I don't.
No, and I mean, just like his career too. Like, at that point, like, I mean, he was then like soon after that, he was in things like Wild Things, Stir of Echoes. I'm just going through his filmography, Hollow Man, Mystic River. Like, as you go up into the 2000s, it's like Kevin Bacon's like such an established name that it's like time just probably just slips right by. But I'm right there with you guys. Like, I would have loved to have seen Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward come back together. Shit, I would have liked to see Reba McEntire and Michael Gross even just talk again. Just to like have that kind of even like keeping the divorce stuff like in there, because that's like one of my favorite lines where I forget the model gun, but just the line of him saying like, yeah, she had me send is it an HK or whatever?
HK91.
HK91. Yeah, she had me send that back. It's like, I love that line. I love that aspect to it because it is just like, you see, going in my love of Tremors 2 here, just like watching Michael Gross, like that was one of my favorite scenes in this whole franchise. Him just in his war room, watching TV, looking all bummy, going through, and then you see the graboid on the wall, and he's just sitting there, he's down and out, he's bummed out, and then just getting back in the saddle and coming in with a full truck. And he's like, you had the whole Mexican army at your disposal and you asked for dynamite and RC cars. It's the best. Like, I absolutely love that.
I always love pointing out to people that, like, because a lot of people have taken Burt Gummer to be a role model, and that's a discussion for another day. And I always like to point out where it's like, this is a dude whose entire life was destroyed because there wasn't a World War III, and only got his mojo back once he found out there were giant monsters to kill. He's not 100% up here. Like, that's not like role model to go after. It's hilarious. It's a great character. He's funny on screen, beautifully played. Not a pinnacle to look up to over here.
I love it. So one of my last questions for you here, I know I said we were going to wrap up with the Bill Watterson stuff, but you brought something up to me, and it's our channel. We can go as long as we want. You're very generous with your time, so we thank you. But it is just one of those things where I'm like, you mentioned that, although you like the pick of Bill Watterson, wouldn't have been your first pick. Who's your first pick? Who would you like to see get behind the camera and do a Tremors movie?
It's one of two. It's either James Gunn or Jordan Peele.
Okay. All right. You know what? I absolutely love the James Gunn pick. I like Jordan Peele. I love Jordan Peele. But yeah, I like that James Gunn pick because of like Slither and stuff. Like, that's really good.
He loves Tremors. Actually, they both have stated their love of Tremors. That's where Jordan Peele, absolutely, that's the whole nexus of Nope was a lot of Tremors love. And then James Gunn, he even has the Earl Bassett Community High School in Slither. So it's like, these are two guys that love it, that they have a great history of the horror and the comedy, and can bring it exactly what I don't want to be served something as a fan. I want you to like punch me up, like what we were talking about with you don't want to go uphill, you want to take the roller coaster ride, and either one of those two would just be okay. Like, Armin, sign me up. Let's go. I will buy your box named Tremors if you're on it. Like, that's
there you go. Luke, how you feel about those picks, man?
Oh man, that James Gunn one I think is really top notch. I think that kind of, because Tremors has always, played it pretty straight. They have, the elements of comedy, especially in the first few ones, and I think James Gunn can kind of, put that little light on there to make it really resonate with what we're used to with those original films like that. So I think that would be a great pick. And like Dylan said, Slither already kind of has that idea of, the science fiction in a kind of a monster movie-esque. I think that would be that's, as Levi said, that's my pick too.
Again, small town dealing with an astronomical, like, whether it's alien or creature presence. I mean, the guy can do it. And I gotta say, with the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, he's already worked with Kevin Bacon, so there's a chance, man. We could get that back. I would love that.
We were talking about the reboots. I wonder if, because Kevin, you guys had it on your video where Kevin said that I'm just waiting for a call thing. I'm always like, please, I would be fine with you canceling the Bill Watterson reboot if you were going to grab Kevin, and you're grabbing Michael and you're grabbing Reba and you're all bringing it back again. If that, like, please, and that's my gut instinct. Having already seen this other one coming, it's like, okay, if I take that piece there and I draw the line and connect the dot, like, that's got to be what's happening there behind the scenes. I was thinking behind the scenes, that marketing department thing is like, please, Kevin, in a sequel that keeps the lore, that would be great. Thank you, God. I'll go to sleep now.
And obviously, I would love to see it where, again, it is tough to talk about Tremors these days without mentioning Fred Ward, but like, whatever they could do to pay tribute to him in that film, if he got like, those three together, that would be definitely one of those all-time great movie moments for me. Like, as a fan, as a horror movie fan, just as a Tremors fan, just like, that's something I would love to see in my life, of just them, like, even if it's just like, that's what brings them together or whatever. It's just like paying tribute to him and just showing, like, because other than Michael Gross, he's like the only true returning original cast member to the series. And again, we talk about it. He's got, if not in most people's minds, the best entry, one of the best entries. So it's like, man, I mean, you gotta pay respect there in some way.
I say John Bernthal as his son. That's always my.
Oh, that's great.
That's
the likeness would be amazing.
And that's where it comes. Like, I see so many people say it. It's like, oh, okay. And then what we were talking about with Tremors 2, like, I would love to be able to reuse some of the script a little bit. And you have Val as the Earl character, and then you have John Bernthal as the Val character. That way, there's a little bit of like trying to teach the son what his dad taught him, and passing of the plan. Like, I always laugh because Earl is the one that came up with the plan. If there's a theme of Tremors, if you're going to put a through line, it's plans.
That is true.
Plan? That is every single fucking movie and TV show. It's always something about a plan, and that was Earl. Earl was the one. It's here it is Monday, and I'm already thinking of Wednesday. It's Monday, right?
I love it.
John Bernthal as his kid, that would be, bring it on.
Absolutely. Luke, any closing thoughts here for you? I just don't want to cut it off unless you got something.
I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure. I absolutely love talking Tremors. So it's like, any excuse to kind of sit down here and pick Levi's brain is just phenomenal. I mean, just the bombs he's dropped here with James Gunn and John Bernthal, if that happens, I'm the first one to buy a ticket. I will pre-sale as soon as it goes on sale. I'm down, but I absolutely love it. We definitely have to do this again. I would love to dig deep into some of these Tremors films, like especially the later halves. Like, I haven't seen them, so to kind of get my reaction, and then it could be fun.
Do it. I don't want you to, but also it's okay. Like, watch the TV show. If you don't watch
we haven't seen that either. I haven't seen that.
We haven't seen it. I think didn't you say it was on Tubi, Luke?
I can't remember if it's on Tubi. Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the Tremor Saga has it available. They're like, watch it wherever. So
Vimeo.
But it's on Vimeo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Vimeo and Tubi. If you don't want to go all the way to 5, 6, and 7, want to dip your toes in, I would recommend the TV show. That's one of my favorite things.
You know what? Maybe I'll live in that space. I've done it thus far. Why chance it?
Absolutely. And then obviously Levi.
I was saying, I would like. I gotta have you guys. I'm on your show now. I gotta have you guys on my show. We gotta
absolutely. Yeah. No, we'd love to. But
thank you for your time.
No problem. For our audience, where can they find you, Levi? Go ahead and let everybody know where the best place to find you is.
I don't really use much of the social media, but I'm Levi Dillon First Love. It says it there on the screen. Or Omegan Smiles. That's actually my Reddit handle. So if you ever go on Reddit and you look up that, you'll be like, holy shit, this person talked about Tremors a fucking lot. Mm-hmm. And so that's all over there. And then always I got to shout out the Tremor Saga people because they're the ones that host me and they put me on their channel. So if you really, oh my God, and that YouTube channel, like there's so much.
There is.
There's behind the scenes shit, but I always love seeing the weird like edits that people make and stuff, like from
Mhm.
TikTok, and you bring over, and you're just like, because Tremors fans are really creative. It's what we were talking about with the low budgets. Like it has inspired generations of people to just get out there and make something. And which, if okay, so my one plug for something, like I said, I have made a Tremors film. So if you want to watch a Tremors film that I have personally made, me and my wife made, look up Tremors Far Afield. And even Burt Gummer liked my Tremors movie, so you know that it's good.
I love it. Absolutely. Burt Gummer, approved on that one.
Oh yeah,
Um,
put it on there.
but heck yeah, thank you, Levi, for joining us. And thank you guys also for sitting down with us and just listening to us talk some Tremors, man. This has been great. Again, we'll definitely be doing this again. Um, as always, though, you guys can catch us up on the channel. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers. We are working hard to get there. And of course, if you guys haven't seen, I think this is going to be up. We're filming this on a Monday. It'll probably be up the following Monday. So by then, we've seen Scream. We've seen 65. Definitely check those reviews out. And our other collaborations with Evan from Rockland Graves, as well as Alex from Beyond the Void podcast. So, alrighty, guys. And that's pretty much it for us. So until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
I'm Levi. Bye.
Perfect. Stay scared.